did your misfire cost you clients?
Yeah, strained relationship with a long-term client, like of like the past 10 years. I didn't want to address it right away because conversations can be hard. If we have that tough conversation, he might decide to go a different direction. Knowing where you're going, but not just letting things drift. Oh, I think we're going off course. Let's recalibrate and do that more often than trying to sweep it under the rug and hope it'll fix itself.
I think a lot of people in creative fields struggle with hiring. Were there any red flags?
Yeah, you edited a video. It doesn't have the outcome that we need. And get confusing. It's like, well, I edited a video. It's like, you did. My 10-year-old can also edit a video. If you want to get into the technical, like, yes, you've put music and shots together, but there's much more to it.
Welcome to Let's Fix Post, a show about making post-production smoother, smarter, and more collaborative for creative teams and editors alike. Hit subscribe now so that you don't miss future episodes. Today I'm chatting with Matt Dringenberg, the owner of Integra Films. With over 15 years in the industry, Matt has built a powerhouse brand serving specialized, rugged niches. Everything from 26 football fields worth of cannabis greenhouses to the barren oil fields of northern Canada. What's really compelling about Matt's story is his recent transition and, fortunately, survival through a hiring nightmare that nearly cost him a decade-long client relationship. He shares a candid look at the iceberg illusion of hiring, why high-end gear and a flashy reel can actually mask a lack of professional character. In our conversation today, Matt explains the difference between a technician who simply puts shots on a timeline and a true editor who can speak to the intentionality behind every creative choice in a project. We also talk about the build versus buy struggle for solopreneurs, and Matt shares why he's moved away from the in-house employee model and more toward a scalable contractor strategy, one that allows him to step out of the edit suite and back into the marketing and networking roles that he actually enjoys. And I won't spoil it for you here, but Matt drops a brilliant redwood tree analogy about brands. You won't want to miss it. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope that you do too. Let's get into it.
Last time we chatted, we was in the office hours with Chad.
Right. Yeah. It's been I'd say last year is probably like the roughest year for me, but a lot of lessons get learned through those challenging times. So I'm still kind of coming out of it, but yeah, I just brought on a guy, just not the right fit. And it caused some, I'd say, a bit of damage to things, but things are coming back into place now, which is good. But yeah, it was just really stressful when you feel that kind of loss of clients and work and stuff. And it was kind of preventable, but yeah, it's much better now though. But I'm still working through like stuff to get it back up. But it's definitely seen that light towards the end of it there. So that's good.
So did your mishire cost you clients?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, shoot. I did not realize that.
That's what stressed me. That was like long-term client. Luckily, strained relationship with a long-term client, like of like the past 10 years. But then I basically scheduled a meeting with them back in December and was like, hey, can we meet? And we talked and it went really good actually. And, cleared up a lot of that, cleared up the air, and it was so good. So yeah, a lot more work coming in again, this year with that. So that was good.
So you won them back, basically.
Yeah, won them back and let them kind of know, like, obviously my fault for bringing on this person, but yeah, I kind of let them know it's just more like he just way oversold himself. He was I think he actually believed he was as good as he was. And I just took that confidence at face value because I just don't do that. Like, I don't run up to people and be like, I'm super awesome and I can do this if I can't do it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he was just too I don't know what you'd call it, but confident in himself and kind of pushed a lot of things, and he wasn't capable of doing them. And then I maybe entrusted too much to him without vetting him a bit better and making sure he was capable of doing that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. Okay. So yeah, let's, I guess, back up real quick because I feel like I didn't know that that you were still feeling the fallout of that whole ordeal. So I was like, to have you flag that in just like the catch up, I'm like, okay, let's get into it then. Because I think that, that is one of the perspectives that I was like very interested to hear from you in a very like unfortunate way. I think I tried to express that to you. I'm like, I'm not trying to capitalize on your misfortune and like the misfire there, but I think it is a valuable perspective because I think a lot of people in creative fields struggle with hiring and knowing, what to look at beyond the work. And so I'd like to get into all of that. But I think prior to that, let's just talk a little bit like, I know we know each other from Chad Brown's cohort with Founders League, but I think for those who are listening that aren't familiar with you or your brand, like, give us the high level view of like you, what you're doing, what makes your company different or special, the types of clients you're targeting, services you offer, like all of that context, I think would be super helpful at the top.
I have a company called Integra Films, and I think like a lot of video creative people started off in the wedding space, doing weddings, which was that was like 13 or 14 years ago. Got into doing that, and then of course started branching it off into kind of the more corporate, sometimes kind of commercially work, and kind of trying to find maybe what that niche would be. I was really just taking on like anything that would come my way. I'd be like, sweet, I'll do it. And where I am up here in Canada, there's the oil industry is huge over here, and I just started to get more calls with that and started to kind of find a niche within the oil industry. And in fact, next week I'm going up north, even further north than what I am right now.
There's more.
There's more. Yeah, it gets colder and more barren. But yeah, going up there and doing some pipeline stuff and shooting with those guys. And so I found that is a pretty cool niche, and I actually really enjoy it. And then also municipalities like towns and things like that. That one I kind of fell into as well, and started doing a lot of work with those guys, and finding like once you do more of one thing, you kind of get more people wanting that. So finding we can specialize in that niche as well. And then still obviously take on other projects as well. We're also working with one of Canada's largest cannabis growers. So they have a huge cannabis facility in Montreal, and they flew us out there to get some incredible shots and stuff. But they have 26 football fields of greenhouse of just different cannabis, and they do all these crazy things.
Wow.
So it was a wild experience. But so we're kind of continually doing work with them as well.
Yeah. What kind of green stuff did they pay you with? Hopefully money, Matt.
Still got paid in money currency.
Good. That's great. I want to kind of dissect like your experience of going through and hiring and just what you learned along the way, but I want to do it like kind of slowly and incrementally.
Sure.
So this was your first hire, right?
I had someone else before as well. And he was good. Like he was, his role was just much more defined. He was coming on as like assistant to help me, where this other person was kind of coming on where they were just a lot more confident that they were going to be like bring in like something that I didn't have, and it was going to be maybe more of a partnership in a way. But it still wasn't, that was never my intention, like that he was going to come in and own my company. He seemed to think that though. So it was, this would be kind of the first like real kind of trying to hire on and connect and grow things in that sense.
You're like owner operator too, right? Like you're super involved with, my take is that you're super involved with every project, from beginning concepting, well, I guess even earlier, right? Like going out and prospecting and finding the clients, and then kicking off the project, doing production and execution there, and then also the post work. And then I'm not sure how far into like the distribution side of it you go, but is that all true?
Yeah, that's all true. Classic, like solopreneur doing basically all the roles and trying to keep it all together. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that is helpful, kind of perspective to keep in mind throughout this conversation, Matt, is that like you have a very intimate knowledge with the craft of the person that you are hiring, is kind of my understanding, right? Like it's not like you involved in the print and like copywriting side of marketing, and now you're hiring a videographer who doesn't, you understand video, you know good video when you see it, but you don't really know, how the sausage is made. But that's not true for you. I think you know exactly what it takes to put in to make the work, right? So I think that's just like kind of helpful perspective to keep as we talk through like what your experience was.
I'm not bringing in somebody because it's like I don't know how to do the thing, and I'm bringing in a hopeful expert that can take that task and do something with it. I'm more that I have too much of that thing. I'm very intimately knowledgeable on it, and I would like more help. Usually is kind of where it's been.
That totally makes sense. I think that's a common situation that videographers and solopreneurs find themselves, right? Like any technician started craft or technician started company, where it's like, and that's how I started too, right? Like I was a freelance video editor. I needed help with just keeping up with demand. So that's where I started recruiting, but I knew what it what was needed. But at the same time, I also didn't. And I think that that's part of what's going to be interesting about our conversation is like when I started hiring early on, I would look at the real a lot. And that's like kind of where I based a lot of my uh, I put a lot of weight on that in terms of like, oh, they can do the job. Look at their reel. Um, I think I would have like maybe a call with them up front or so, just to be like, are they a human being? Do they exist? Do they speak English? All that sort of stuff. But then it was just like off to the races, right? And I had a lot more misfires than I did
Mm.
like, bullseyes. So what was your perspective going into your hiring phase, in terms of like what you were putting weight on, how you were evaluating a fit?
Seeing like the highlight of what they've done, jumping on a call or doing a meeting with them and asking questions about like, hey, what's your experience with this and what's with this? And of course, like if you're wanting something, you'll kind of hype yourself up a bit more, or you'll maybe say you can do it. And I think I've done that before with even clients where I'm like, I'll figure it out. And I do usually figure it out. Sometimes it's like, I haven't done that before, but I'll figure it out. And we do pull it off.
Yeah.
So it's definitely happened, but yeah, I was more looking at that highlight of what they did and then kind of asking them questions and being like, okay, it sounds like you know what you're doing, or it sounds like you've got something there. So that's enough confidence for me. So let's kind of test this out, I guess.
Did you interview multiple candidates or like did you already know this person?
Not for this one. This person had reached out to me through Instagram actually, and happened to be in the same area as me. So I'm on like the suburbs of the city that where like all the work typically is. There's not usually a lot of people out here. So to have someone that was kind of like close by, I was like, oh, that's sweet, because sometimes I need help with something, and usually for someone to come out this area, they just think it's like a really far distance when it's not, but they just think it's like a different town, so it must be far away. But if they went like north to south of the same city, it's way further than coming out to where I am. So to have somebody more local was also just something where I was like, okay, this would be really great to kind of partner up on that as well.
So there was like a geographic draw, right? Where it's
That was
like,
part of
oh,
it.
wow,
Yeah.
there's someone here. There's someone actually here. We have a lot of the same. So our whole team at least started local. And I think, I don't know how much you remember from the cohort, but all of my team are employees. And up until maybe a year and a half ago, we all were driving distance to the office, and we used to work in an office. And then something happened in 2020. I don't remember
Oh,
why we stopped working in an office, but there was one
some
weekend
weird
in
thing.
March where we just never came back. We're also about an hour east of LA, and LA is like, a creative hub. There's a lot of like work. There's a lot of people looking for work out there. There's a lot of, it's like traditionally thought of as having a lot of talent, right? Especially in film, usually film, not necessarily digital. And so I've fallen into that same trap where it's like, oh, this person is actually in, our suburban area called the Inland Empire. We got to move on this fast. Like, don't worry if they can actually do the job. It's like the geolocation is like more important at that point because it's more rare. Did you find yourself kind of in that situation?
Yeah, for sure. That's very, yeah, you kind of hit it on the head there. Just to have someone local close by, it was definitely a draw.
So what were like kind of the main beats that you went through? You said you got like a DM essentially, like, and then maybe just like kind of rewind a little bit, like you checked out their work. What was your like vetting process, if you could call it, that at the time?
Yeah, we actually like went and met. I met in person, went out for like coffee and like chatted about kind of what I was looking for. He shared what he was looking for, and we were actually very aligned in like kind of goals and what we wanted. I think the misalignment more just came in the actual experience. I was like probably 10 years his senior, so he was maybe more kind of starting and figuring things out. But he owned like a ton of gear, like a lot of stuff, like high end stuff, which I guess for myself, I was definitely a slow builder, as I wanted to have as much stuff as I could just buy it in cash and as I needed it, versus like just gonna buy all the stuff and like people are gonna hire me because I got things right. But again, I didn't like ask like, how did you pay for that, or how did you get all that? I was like, oh, if you got that stuff and you've got all these things, there must be some level of success that must be going along with that. So that kind of drew me in as well, where I was like, okay, well, you've got that. That's pretty cool. And like I said, we were aligned on vision, but like maybe the road to get to that vision, that's where the misalignment maybe started to come into play of like how we're going to get there. And with the experience that I already had, it personally was like, I already know some of those routes that are not good to go. And he might have still been on the exploration of that.
That's where some of that like seniority comes into play, where it's like, I've already made all these mistakes. Like, what you would hope is that someone is a learner and says like, okay, like I will not repeat that mistake and waste all this time versus, maybe someone more hard nosed. It's like, I got to experience it for myself. And then it sounds like, and then drag you with them through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you mentioned like, oh, he had a lot of gear, and it's kind of like between the lines, there's like, okay, there's some implied success. If you can afford a camera or whatever at this grade of quality, like that demands that it suggests that you're producing work that equipment demands. And the way I see that show up for me is like in editor reels, kind of tying it specifically to editing. I know it sounded like he did multiple jobs, and I'd be interested to get in that in a sec. But on the editing front, I'm like, oh, here's all these brands you've worked with, right? So certainly that must mean that you not only can have the technical chops to do it, but conduct yourself in such a way that people in the professional world want to work with you. And those are like two very different poor assumptions to make. Do you feel like that's similar to your experience?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of fall into that, I guess. You see either the equipment or the brands, and you make that assumption of like, okay, there must be some credentials there, some sort of experience there to warrant those things. So yeah, and I mean, that doesn't mean everything, right? So, and I think it's just very different from the way that I personally operate. I'm much more. I'm not saying I'm humble. I'm probably the word be more like self-deprecating in a sense, like where I'm like more like, I think maybe I can do this, and then some people are like, "What are you talking about?" Of course, I was like, "Oh, maybe," and then like I go into it, and it's just like, "Of course you could do that, right?" But I don't typically hype myself up too much. I'm more on the other side of the spectrum, I guess. So
Yeah. I feel like that's more the Canadian way, isn't it? Like sorry is
it
like
does. I
the
fall right into
phrase.
the stereotype.
Okay, so looking back to kind of maybe that first exchange that you had, this, might parallel someone bringing an editor onto their team or another creative team member onto their, marketing staff or whatever. Were there any red flags other than the assumption that you made about the gear? Were there any other red flags, maybe personality wise, or just like, I don't know, just stuff that jumped out there, you're like, that makes a lot of sense now with the way that this unfolded. I wish I'd picked up or went with my gut on that.
Yeah. In hindsight, obviously hindsight's the 2020. So looking back, it's like, that makes sense now, or that's something I should have maybe given more credence to, where I just kind of was like, and I wanted somebody there, right? So you're kind of, it's almost like the meeting a new person, or you're falling in love or something, right? You're going to overlook some mistakes or things that are flagging there. So I think when I look back on it, it would have been like, oh, even when he was starting to do some editing, and there was some pretty basic editing things within the NLE, the software, that he didn't know how to do, and it wasn't there. And it was kind of, and I just took it on. I was like, oh, hey, it's all right. We're figuring this out. Here's how you do that. Like I just went and taught it and was just kind of more gracious in that sense. But then it wasn't like reciprocated back, like, hey, thank you for teaching me that. There was still like, here's an invoice for the work that I just did. And it's like, well, I kind of just, I shared some knowledge with you and taught you something. Like, other side of it, I think I would have more appreciated like, hey, thank you for teaching me that. I'm going to keep working at this or whatever, right? So those types of things. And then like a business sense too, like there was just more like, he came on when we started to get more involved with things. A new job would come up, and it'd be kind of like, well, how are we splitting that job? But that job was brought in completely through my connections, my past experience, the branding, the marketing. He did nothing to bring it in. So I was like kind of taken aback, and I was like, you're going to get paid for the work that you do on the job. There's no splitting the job. That was, so I started to like kind of see these things, but still kind of work with it. So yeah, my bad.
My bad. That's a summary.
Yeah.
Title of the episode. My bad. Well, let's explore that a little bit. So, do you feel like there were some expectation setting things that got missed at the front end? Like, is that kind of where these diverging paths kind of stemmed from?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, we had like the same vision, like of like what we wanted to do, and like he wanted to grow kind of a video and creative business, and I was already doing that, and it's like, oh, cool, because I had worked with somebody in the past, and they were much more like passive about like, just, do you have any work, and here this is, but they weren't really motivated. Where this person came across much more motivated. They were often saying like, hey, we should do this and we should do this, and I started to learn over time that the we was either like me having to do that with my brand, my business, my what I was doing, and it was me having to take a risk or having to invest something. And it was just, and even like sometimes the he was like literally like we should be like sitting beside each other working. And for me, it's like, well, no, there's more, so many tasks to do. If there's a it's like, you do your task, I'm gonna do my task, come back together, make it happen. I don't actually want to like physically work on the same project or the same task at the same time together. That's not efficient for me anyway. That doesn't really work.
Yeah, well, and part of that I would assume is like what you brought him on to do is like you handle this while I turn away from that.
Mm-hmm.
Consider that you have ownership over the task, but it's interesting too that you mentioned kind of this idea of like oh well, how, like, what's my commission check almost, or like profit sharing check for bringing this work
Mm-hmm.
in. So it's like there was a flavor of ownership, right, on the other side, but not in the lane that you wanted it.
Correct. There was no investment into. It would be different if he came on and it's like, hey, I'm going to buy into the company or something. And obviously I wouldn't make a decision like that unless I really, really trusted and knew somebody, which would take years to build that relationship. But, or if you're going to invest I don't know, something like your time, or, if you're bringing something else where you're like, hey, I already have a handful of clients of my own and I'm going to bring them to the table, and then that would be different. But everything was going under my brand, was going under the work that I had done, and the connections I had made, all those things. So to have this, like, again, he had that desire, but didn't put in the work or the effort to earn any kind of profit sharing or anything like that. It was really based on so and I don't know where that came from, that expectation, because I'd never said that there would be like a profit sharing or whatever. So we did talk about that later. I said, well, here, there can be bonuses and whatnot coming in from this. If you were able to like get a new client and you can have this much of a percentage or something of the profit. Had to really make sure that was clear if the job is not profitable. But then I learned he didn't actually understand even what profitability meant on a job. And it was like, just because like $10,000 is being charged out to the client does not mean there's $10,000 that's coming in as profit. So that was also something where I started to learn, like, okay, there's a lot more experience and skill needed here.
That definitely rings like true for me in the like what you just mentioned, like being more green or being more novice, where it's like, yeah, when I first started out I think mostly as a freelancer, even as a business owner, I'm like you said, ooh, a check for 10 grand, like that's great. Like we just made 10 grand, but it's like so much of that is already spoken for. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I don't think this is that episode, but I mean, we've had to really drill down on like how did we get to that figure, and then let's
Mm.
immediately allocate the money there, and then the profit is a portion of that. So I mean, like having just that level of business, basic level of business acumen of like 10 grand, like you still got to do the work the work you don't do for free, so it has to go somewhere. So yeah, I could see just having a fundamental misalignment out the gate. um what would you say was like the job description when you hired him on?
Yeah, I think maybe that's where I could have been more clear, because I wasn't just bringing in someone to be an editor, or it was kind of like, hey, if there's going to be a video shoot, definitely gonna need assistance on set to come on out there and help with lighting and filming and just moving equipment and gear around too. And sometimes it would be that you're going to be operating a camera, and it also meant you're going to be doing some other tasks. And then maybe afterwards, yeah, we're going to got some editing tasks to do as well. So there wasn't like a defined role. He knew what that was coming on to. It wasn't like it was like, oh, I'm bringing you on as this role, and now I'm asking you to do a bunch of other stuff. So there was that understanding, and then getting compensated for either a day rate when we're out on set, and if we're out doing editing, then let's kind of allocate like how long should this edit take, and here's kind of the budget that's allocated for that to do. And so that's how kind of things worked out on the compensation side of things.
Okay, so obviously you know me, I'm like 100% post focused. Yeah, maybe 98%. We're starting to offer a few different things, but on the post side, like how did you what did you use for your gauge on like progression planning? Like, okay, the first thing you should do is, the culling, and then maybe two or three projects later. Like, this is kind of how we handle it internally, is like scaling the level of responsibility project to project. Like, did you have that sort of a growth plan in place, or did you just kind of like dive head first and say, like, here's the project, it's your responsibility, like, let me know when it's done?
It was probably more the second one,
Okay.
because
Okay.
I'm so used to doing so much of the editing or the post
Mm.
work that you don't really think about the steps that you take. You just know how to do it and get into it. And I guess I felt like if I'm gonna have to lay out all these steps or list out all these things, I'm just gonna do it myself then, almost, kind of thing. Like I want someone that I could really hand this off to, and if they are more experienced than me, then they're going to come back and say, hey, here's maybe something more that we should do, or a better way or a process. That makes me feel like, oh, I'm in good hands, versus like, yeah. So I didn't really know, like, what should I be showing this person to do? It felt like extra work on top of everything else that we had. So I wanted something that I could really just be like, here you go. I would do the outcome. That would be really the main thing, is like, the outcome needs to be that it like feels this certain way. And here's some reference work as well of what I've done in the past. The client wants something similar to this, and that's kind of as far as it went.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to learn how your perspective has changed since then. But from
Mm.
what I've seen, my learnings was like it's like the typical iceberg thing, right? Like the work that's done or produced is like what you see. But then all of the systems and the
Hmm.
processes and the like check-ins and the benchmarks that you're supposed to hit, and like I don't know, just all of the how it's done versus what's produced seems to be like, where a bulk of our training time is now. And
Mm,
it's almost like for us, like because we're actually are in a hiring phase right now. And I've been going through a lot of applications and interviews and whatnot, but it's like the doing of the work, like what you see from the surface of the water, is like table stakes. Like you got to be
Hmm.
able to do that. And what I've learned now is like that's the filter, right? Like if you can't do that little snippet I can see of doing the work, then like we just filter that applicant out. And then when I'm interviewing and like asking questions, and we do a test project too now. It's like
Mm.
I'm looking at all the stuff under the surface. And like how did you problem solve that corrupt file that I intentionally put in the media? Like, I want to see how did they accomplish the work, not necessarily the end product of it.
like this test project, do you already have a version that's fully like kind of edited? So afterwards you can say, well, this is how I would have come to the final conclusion, and show that same footage, same everything. Here's what ours look like versus yours, or
Right. That's a great idea. I have not yet.
okay.
But it is a completed project. Like I'm not obviously sending them client work.
Right.
But it is something that has been fully delivered and finished out and everything. It's actually up for an award right now, which is kind of
Oh,
cool.
awesome. Cool.
Yeah, but
Congratulations.
no, thanks. But it is interesting. I think that is an important element to the test, is like we have gone through this project and we know what's possible with the footage, and then you kind of get a sense of like where either corners were cut, or where like there's just knowledge gaps around how to problem solve and tell stories, or like I already knew that there was better footage to pair with this moment that didn't get
Yep.
used. And
Hmm.
that was, that has been helpful for us. I'm assuming you didn't adopt like any sort of a test project, or maybe you did. Like what was the kind of the early days?
I should have done a test project and seen what the outcome would have come from something that was already completed, and see what they chose. Because like in the wedding space, hired other like wedding editors remotely, and that also is
Oh no.
not good. Like, and I tried quite a few when I was doing that, and it was just never up to snuff. And I think it was really, you feel that intentionality behind a good editor when I could say like, hey, why did you use that shot here? And they can
Hmm.
typically say like, oh, I chose it because it feels this certain way. It aligns with the beat of the music. It does this. Or they might say, hey, you know what? There was like 3 or 4 shots I could have used here, and maybe not one of them is the right answer. It's just these 3 could have worked, and I went with this one though. And other editors, it's like it just feels random and fast and like rushed out, and you're like, so why is this here? And they don't really have a reason, as opposed as it was more like, well, I just had to finish the project. It kind of feels like, so I finished it, and it's like, well, it's really missing out, or there's a way better shot that could have been used, or whatever that is, right? So
Well, yeah, and especially if you have like a body of work to be like, this is my standard, this is my style. These you can kind of infer some pillars of content that it's structured around, right? And to have the mark missed there is like, oh, this isn't even my work. Like the whole point is to pass it off as my work
yep.
with
Yeah,
outsourcing.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
quick tangent there. In the two situations we've been talking about, both like our hiring process and the experience that you went through, it's like both of us are in the seat of needing to craft the infrastructure within which that team member or employee is operating, right? Like, so saying like, here's our SOPs, like, here's what the outcome is. Like, we're providing a lot of guardrails around how it's built. So taking a tangent into kind of the wedding space, I'm curious, like, you don't have to drop any names or anything, but like, were you exploring companies or were you exploring other like freelancers?
did both. I tried companies, and I also just tried freelancers as well. Um, it's still kind of funny because the companies felt, I was like, oh wow, this is great, because they would have like more of a process where they would start asking like styles of music and all these things. You went through all this checklist, and the impression I got afterwards is that was just that formality to make it look like it. I don't feel like they
Oh
were ever
no.
referencing it. Like I was like, did we not, like, there's one where I specifically said, I was like, I never do black and white, like please don't. And then immediately it opens up with like black and white footage, and I was like, that I like actually made a note saying don't do that, or like the wrong couple's names on the thing. I was like, that's not even their. So I don't feel like they were even looking at those references at all. So it was impressive at first, but if it's not being used, then what's it matter?
Yeah, I mean, I have heard a similar pain point where it's like, and in the corporate space as well with outsourced post, where it's like, even though I'm hiring a company, this is from the like the customer's perspective that I'm hearing from. It's like, even though I'm hiring a company, I am still retraining each new person to where it basically feels like I'm working with new freelancers every time. There's no consistency between them. It sounds similar to your experience where it's like the upfront intake was like a formality to give you the impression that they've got their act together and things are going to stay consistent and recorded. But then when the rubber hits the road, it's like, where'd that go? Maybe the editor didn't get this.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, slight plug here for us that like we are very diligent about like doing a style. Our process starts with like a style guide, like an intake conversation. A lot of the other companies I've heard are like, here, submit a form, and that's kind of it. It's like I can't really roll that way. It's like creative work feels like a conversation to me. So I'll get off my soapbox about our own services. But I just think it's interesting that like, as an employer, you're kind of expected to create this infrastructure that someone has to work with. And I could see that being annoying for you or like, a lot of added work. But at least you know what you're talking about. Like I think about creative directors at enterprise companies or in-house or at agencies where like they don't know video, but they know they need it done. And it's like, are
Hmm.
you looking to the vendor or to the freelancer to bring that structure to you versus like providing it?
Yeah, no, and that's probably my own lack of experience. Now I have the experience, but that's probably my own like lack of experience in hiring and bringing on people to have those frameworks in place, so that like once they're in place, I don't have to. They're there, so I can kind of use it as a guideline for myself too. And also, it's sometimes not even fair to bring somebody on and kind of throw them out to the water and be like, make something happen, and if it doesn't hit the mark, like, I guess ultimately that responsibility does hit on me for not being clear about it, not laying that stuff out there as well. So it depends who you're. If I'm bringing on an employee, I got to put that out there. If I'm contracting somebody out, then maybe I am hoping that they'll have that expertise where I can say, I don't know exactly what I'm doing, and I'm hoping that this is something that you are more skilled at can I lean on you for some help in guiding this, I guess is probably where that would go for me.
I'm glad that you use that word because that's what I was thinking through, where it's like, do you want to be the guide or do you want to be guided? So
Right.
if you had to hire, I'm gonna stick with post again because that's my sweet spot. But like if you
Yeah.
got 1,000 new projects in tomorrow and you needed a post solution, like, do you have a preference of which way you'd want to do it? Like, do you want to be the guide to like put all that together, or would you hope that whoever you brought in like kind of already had that all built out?
Personally, I'd hope that it was already all built out. I got enough things on my plate. I feel like it would be so valuable. Like that value would be really high for me to be like, wow, I can pass this off to you, and you know maybe more than what I know in this and the processes and those systems, and I can actually like breathe and be like, it's actually being handled by a very competent person, and I'm not stressing about what's going to happen with that end result or the deadline or whatever that is. So that'd be hugely valuable for me personally anyway, to have someone else taking over that lead and guiding things for me.
That's how I feel for sure. Like, especially when I don't know the craft, you know, like
Yeah.
working with doing kind of redoing some of our own marketing and like positioning and all this stuff where I'm like, people go to school for this. Like, I'm not gonna nail it, on my first. I'd rather hire an expert and be led. I think as soon as I get a whiff that I either know more than the person I'm talking to that I've hired, or that I have a more clear vision for the structure in which the work should go, I'm like, huge red flag for me. What was the conversation that you had with the team member once you redid the work on that project that they were supposed to have owned?
Yeah. So I had redid it, sent them the version. They immediately responded back that they noticed such a big difference in the version that I did versus what they did. They actually even said like, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed."
Oh,
They
okay.
kind of acknowledged like that they weren't hitting it,
Okay.
and I appreciated that. And I was like, okay, well, let's. I'm open to continuing to give this another go and give you some more opportunities. What I didn't clarify, I guess, or didn't say is like, I'd like to see that you're doing some more practice, I guess, or something on your end, maybe on, I can't ask you to do free work. I don't want you to do that, but, just something more like that. It's not all your practice is not coming from paid work from me, and that you're going to start honing your skills because I'm continually giving you stuff like, so I guess I could have been more clear about that. I more just kind of implied like that should be something, because that, again, that is what I did to get better. But, so that was something, but he did acknowledge that there was definitely a difference in the quality and the deliverable of it.
I feel like that's about the best you could hope for at that
Yeah.
point, right? Because to have someone just be like, "Oh, cool," like whatever, like that would
Yeah.
have been a
Yeah.
much
No.
different story versus like, "Ooh, I feel bad." Like I struggle with that where I'm like, there are times when I think people on the team should kind of feel bad, like just from a professional sense, where it's like I threw you this ball so I could turn around and juggle these other balls, and then I turn around and I see the ball is on the ground and you're just staring at it.
And especially if as a business owner, and not to talk down on anybody else, but you're probably juggling way more balls than what they're juggling. So it can
They're
kind of be
just way
frustrating
heavier.
or they're heavier,
Yeah.
or you're doing it longer. So you gotta, whatever, you go to bed juggling those balls still. Sometimes it's weighing on your mind and things, right? So it
Yeah,
can be a bit
yeah.
frustrating when they seem to have less and they seem to have trouble, or they're trying to, I don't know, maybe reason that like the stuff they're doing is just as into, and it's perspective. I can't say how someone else needs to handle something, but typically I'm like, well, I'm doing a lot of other things as well myself. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not like you said, I'm not kicking back on vacation. Like, I have been fortunate enough in the last year to be able to take a month off, and it was great. And I mean, I didn't fully unplug. I checked my email every day. So I'm like, okay, maybe this year I'll do the unplugged version. But like having people in place that you can trust to own and carry that, and they'll never do it exactly the way that you would have done it. And I think it's about being okay with that. But there's a difference between being okay with that and then just turning out mediocre slop, right? And like
yeah,
something undeliverable. Like those are two very different camps.
absolutely. Yeah. And who's to say that you or I only know the one right way. There's sometimes more than one right way to do it too. So trying to be open to that, but that's hard. That's so hard, especially when you've worked and built it up, and it's fresh, and
Yes.
it's, I mean, I think that's probably the biggest thing. Like, I've always known it, but once you start experiencing it, it's kind of like the thing of like the redwood tree can be growing for hundreds of years, but it can be chopped down in an hour. Destruction is so much faster than creation. So you've worked really hard to build it, and it can get damaged fairly fast.
Oh yeah, as you have lived and
Yeah,
experienced, right? Like, and thank goodness you were able to like get that conversation or that relationship back on track with the client. But I mean, you still suffered for it, right? And there was a
absolutely.
period, I'm sure there were sleepless nights in there where you're just like, the face palm of like, I should have, whatever. But
Hmm.
so like, what was the straw that broke the camel's back, and how did that moment go?
Yeah, it was obviously things kind of building and building, but it was essentially, it was feeling more like a burden than a helpful thing. It was every time we were either interacting with each other or something, I was feeling like, I guess it almost made it feel like I was feeling being taken advantage of in a sense, because I felt like I was providing lots of opportunity. I was taking risk. It would be my company or my business on the line. These contracts are being signed under my name. If something goes wrong
Yeah.
legally, that's going to fall on me.
Hmm.
This other person can walk away or go somewhere else. They don't have to carry that, right? And I didn't feel like that was being reciprocated back. So it was oftentimes every time we'd meet, he'd have a request. He would be asking for something more or looking for something else. And it was just like, you know what, this is causing me more anguish, I guess, and putting more weight and burden on me than it is relieving. So I need to change something.
How long did you let it go?
Too long.
From the
But
moment you knew that
yeah,
this was not right.
I'd probably say I still gave it like another 3, maybe 4 months of
Okay.
kind of
Yeah.
feeling like, and it was, part of me was hoping like it was, and I was actually going through things with Chad at the time, the
Hmm.
mentoring and things.
Hmm.
So it was like, if this is a relationship you want to invest in, you can correct it. If it's not something that you want to keep investing in, you don't need to correct it. You can see if there's going to be any change on its own, but like changing someone's character or what they're doing, like it's not my responsibility to need to go forward and give this advice and say what I need changed, unless I'm like, oh, I really want to keep this going, then yeah, maybe I could speak into it and change it. But we came on a premise of business and growing things and doing all these different stuff. And that wasn't being fulfilled. And he was sensing it, but he would often all of a sudden come back of like saying like friendship is the most important thing. And I want to make sure we stay friends and all this. And for me, it was like we never met on like a friend app or
It was
a thing of,
always
it was
business
always
first,
business.
right?
And if the business side isn't doing what it needs to do, well, that was the meaning of this relationship for me. It wasn't, and we did
Mm.
get along good, and he was a good guy and things like that. There was nothing wrong there, but the purpose of this relationship was business and work. It wasn't about making friends. And we had never specified that. So it started to see a misalignment of what we were looking for here.
Yeah, I totally get that. I think that it's such a double-edged sword to get close to the people that you work with, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it really is. And that's where I've been so fortunate and so thankful that like, my team I'm close to, and I do great work. And I think that it's just again, I think back to that sort of iceberg illusion where I'm like, I think it really pays off to be looking at all those things under the surface of what it really takes to bring someone on other than the work being performed. Because within all of that undersurface stuff is like, how are they going to show up? Like, are they going to be, I use humble a lot. Like, are they going to be intentional with their craft? Like, they can defend, the choices that they make. Are they responsive to feedback? Like, there's so many soft skills that are like arguably more important than like, do they have the technical chops? Right. And I think that's probably what Chad was getting to is like, you can't train character. You can't teach on that.
Yeah, that's so true. Like if someone's less skilled but they're humble and they're willing to learn, well that's great because you can work with that, right? But the other way around is kind of, it can be tough. So yeah.
I know that this situation went like pretty poorly. Like it failed in all of these different directions, it sounds like. But like how would the relationship have looked if things had gone successfully? Like what was your vision for how it would have played out?
I guess the vision of it was that we could bring on more clients because there's been more demand and more requests. And if I was freed up to, as the owner, I guess more so, I wanted to free up my schedule so I could do more kind of marketing, more networking, more kind of expanding and growing things out there. But I can't do that when I'm stuck doing the work, like the actual the thing that we promised our clients we were going to do for them. So if I need to fulfill that, I don't have as much time to kind of go out and prospect and do these other. And I actually really enjoy marketing and the networking side of things. Like that's something I did go to school for marketing. Actually, that's the thing I did go for. But I didn't go for anything video related. That all kind of came afterwards. But so I find that part really enjoyable. Editing, not so much, but it has to be done. So I think if it went well, it was like I had somebody I could rely on. It was a reliable partner that's like, this project's coming up. I know that you can do it to what we need to. You understand, you know how to get the project done and on time, all those things. And that just takes that pressure off of me, that I can confidently tell a client, like, yeah, it's going to get done and you're going to love it. Like to confidently say that and know that somebody else can achieve that is awesome. That's what I would have liked.
Yeah, and it, like you mentioned, it frees you up to do the role that you want to do, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like, how would you have shown up in, this other team member's role? Like, what would your role have been in relation to theirs?
I think it would have been great to still be involved in like casting the vision of it, kind of giving the feel and the vibe and checking in at different milestones, before they like run too far with it. And then they've put in hours and hours and it's not the right outcome. Right. So yeah, it would just been more checking in, but still having that trust that they're not needing hand holding. They're not needing constant direction. But they have that competence to kind of understand, but also they know how to ask the questions. Maybe if I'm not being clear, they know, oh, I think these are the questions I should ask and to get more clarity for myself too.
Hmm.
Which I think comes with experience as well.
Well, experience and humility too. I mean, I think
Mm,
just being willing to ask a question and say like, I don't know, like I don't have the answer. I've tried. Um, well, actually, so let me pause there. Like just having the ability and the humility to raise the hand, but also not having that be your go-to is what I found is valuable. It's like I enjoy people that raise the hand, but then in the same breath say, I've tried this, 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 and this, and I still can't figure it out. Versus like, oh, I don't know, and I'm like, did you Google it?
ooh, yeah,
Right?
that happened a few times where it's just like
Did it?
you could have asked some AI or you could have did this because I self-taught so much of myself, and that's where I figured it out, where I was down the trail of YouTube tutorials or doing so many different things to figure out how to do it. Uh, so I definitely have that expectation for other people. And if it is just coming to like, they just seem to give up too early or they don't seem to use the resourcefulness to figure it out. It does kind of irk me a little bit because I'm not asking you to do something that I haven't done or I haven't been on that journey myself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, how long have you been in business?
Uh, it's like 14 or 15 years of doing this. So
Okay, yeah,
yeah.
you're actually my senior then too.
Oh,
But
okay.
we've been around maybe 10 or 12, so I'm right on your heels. So you and I both grew up in this age without AI. Like it wasn't even a thing. It wasn't even close to being a thing. Like
No.
Google and Reddit were like your closest you're gonna get.
Yep.
And we made it work, right? So it's almost this double insult or like salt in the wound to be like, you couldn't have figured this out, and you have this amazing AI resource now that I never had. Like, there's a little, I could see that stinging more, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, if you just hear that they tried, it's not like getting angry if it's like, oh, you put a genuine effort in and can't figure it out. I'm for sure here to help. But if it's just, yeah, the effort's not there but then the expectation is to still be compensated as an expert, it's kind of, that hurts a little on my side too.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if they're just not performing, right? They're just not up
Hmm.
to snuff. But then on the flip side, so I really value when people raise the hand rather than put a bunch of work in the wrong direction that could have been like you were running on an assumption or like you didn't ask that question and
Hmm.
then the end result turned out this way. So like that application project I was mentioning, we put a corrupt file in there and it was a two camera interview piece. It was one of the interview angles.
Ah,
And
okay.
so many applicants just didn't reach out. and also didn't fix it. So they're just like, oh, I guess it doesn't work. Moving on. And this was a paid application project, by the way, too. I paid
Wow.
these people because I wanted to make sure and not, call any weird favors. Like, I think especially like job applicants today, it's like a lot of them I found will apply and not read anything about the company. They're just like mass. And so if I'm going to ask someone to do something, I didn't feel right not paying them. So it's a paid test project, didn't reach out about the thing. And then the edit comes together where there's only one angle,
Mm.
and there's some creative problem solving that would happen where it's like, okay, they would do like a Ken Burns effect, or they would like punch in or something. So I'm like, okay, at least you did something, but at the same time,
Right.
like, I know that you could have reached out too. It's great.
Yep.
Well, actually, it was an issue with the what do you call it? The suffix, like on like the .mov. It was like we put some little weird thing, so they could have fixed it on their side. Um, so there's a couple different little tests we're
Nice.
running
I
like
like
within
that.
the bigger tests. Yeah. So take that and run with it if you
Yeah.
find yourself in a similar position. What would you do differently, Matt? Any one thing from out, maybe just little moments along the way? Because it seemed like you had opportunities, right? Like from the first encounter to like these kind of little infractions to like maybe the way that it ended. What are some of your biggest takeaways from this experience?
Noticing things and addressing them right away. I didn't want to address it right away because conversations can be hard and they can be whatever. And a part of me was really looking for another person to work with and partner with. So I didn't want to like let that go. If I was like, oh, if I have that tough conversation, he might decide to go a different direction or whatever. And it was just addressing things immediately and calling it out and saying like, hey, this is what's kind of happening here. This I can't move on like this. I can't continue like this. And things could have maybe either been corrected a lot sooner, or we could have just went separate ways a lot sooner and avoided some kind of painful lessons, I guess, which are now strong with me, which is good. But yeah, I think that'd be the biggest thing is clarity, and then constantly correcting that, like knowing where you're going, but not just letting things drift, starting to be like, oh, I think we're going off course. Let's recalibrate and do that more often than trying to sweep it under the rug and hope it'll fix itself and not look at it.
Yeah, yeah, I think that is so true. I think it not only in a relationship sense, but I think about that a lot with new editors in the craft too. Like I'd much rather have a lot more touch points and be like, oh, we got to keep this on track. Let's stay like, more in lockstep than like I said, you get to the end and you get this V1, you're like, that's great, but it's not what I needed at all. Like, so in a macro sense, doing that with the relationship too, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it applies all over the place. And I think especially with like post work, like it's that kind of outcome versus the task. Like, yeah, you edited a video. It doesn't have the outcome though that we need, that we needed a certain feeling or that whatever at the end of it. And it kind of, I learned like it can get confusing. It's like, well, I edited a video. It's like you did. But my 10-year-old can also edit a video if you want to
Oh
get
no.
if you want to get into the technical, like, yes, you've put music and shots together, but there's much more to it.
Yeah, yeah. Once you start bringing in the 10-year-old, that conversation's not going great. Okay, one last point. Where are you at currently? Like, are you burned out, never gonna hire again? Are you kind of picking up your lessons and moving forward with another position, or like where are you at on the growth side of things?
Yeah, I'd still say on this, like coming out of this burnout and cleaning things up, um, probably right now I've kind of come resolute that I'd rather contract this out than try to bring on an employee or bring on somebody. Um, and that's in other, like I have there's somebody else that I don't know why we never kind of partnered together in the first place, but he's already got his own creative video company. I got mine. We work together once in a while from the same office. We kind of bounce ideas off each other when we're hitting a hard times, but we're not reliant on each other. I'm not asking him like where's the next job coming. He's not asking me for the next
Hmm.
job. But when we do have stuff where we need help, it's like, dude, can you come help me with this? Yep. And vice versa. And we can just help each other out, whether we're both pretty fine with like almost pro bonoing it and just being like, cool, I'll catch you on the next one when I need you to help out with this. No, we're not doing editing for each other. It's just mostly the shooting side of things, but that works out really great just to like connect, do these things. And then as far as editing goes, my plan would be more to contract out the editing versus trying to bring somebody on in-house and trying to manage and all those things. don't think that's something I want to do at the moment. Again, maybe one day in the future, but yeah, not right now.
I think it helps having the experience and like knowing it's not for you versus
Hmm.
like beating yourself up and being like, this has to be the way to do it, and I just suck at it, right? It's like there are other options out there for all of the positions in production, right? Like from pre-production to the filming to the post, like there's tons of different ways to skin those cats, to use a phrase I don't really care for, but yeah, it's good to recognize that. But
Totally.
and now you've got a clear vision in mind for like what's your list of must-haves versus nice-to-haves in a partner that's going to allow you to be who you want to be.
100%. Like, I mean, it's a tough lesson, but there's like some life skills and things that are going to be pretty ingrained and embedded in me. I have much more clarity on that. So
Yeah. Well, glad to hear it, man. It felt like a little bit of a like, Matt, will you ever love again? And it sounds like you're open to, like to growing beyond just having to feel like well, then there's no one out there. I'm just going to be stuck doing it myself for the end of
yeah,
time. So glad that that
yeah,
wasn't the outcome for you.
yeah. And it's been pointed out to me before, I'm not the best editor in the world. There's people that enjoy editing 100% and that's what they want to do all the time. So why not give those people the opportunity than me taking on this other side of things that I probably am not the best person to ever do it anyway.
Yeah, and even if you are, like, is that worth your time, right? Like you mentioned all the other prospecting and sales and marketing and like just the other plates that you're spinning that like couldn't really outsource, or maybe you don't want to and you want to spend your time a certain way. So yeah, I mean, I think that translates across the board to all the different disciplines. Is where do you want to spend your time?
100%.
Well, this has been really great. So how can people follow your work or stay in touch or like just get more familiar with the work that you're producing?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, my company's called Integra Films, and there's all the socials: Facebook, Instagram, website. We've got to put more stuff on YouTube. But yeah, oddly enough, yeah, I don't have a ton on YouTube or anything at the moment. But yeah, the socials are kind of the place to find it.
Okay, cool, man. Well, thank you so much for being on. I appreciate catching up with you and happy to bounce ideas off if it ever helps for, all things business employee, all that fun stuff. So
For
appreciate
sure,
you.
much appreciate that.
Cool, man. All right, have a good one.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks for joining Matt and I in our conversation. I really appreciate Matt just being so transparent about the fallout of that hiring misfire. It's a really stark reality in our industry that I'm sure a ton of people can relate to. You can teach someone a software shortcut, but you can't teach them the trait of resourcefulness before they just give up. One of my biggest takeaways was Matt's point on recalibration. If you feel like a relationship is drifting off course, don't just sweep it under the rug. Address it immediately. Silence in leadership is just permission for a project to fail. My biggest takeaway was Matt's lesson on the difference between technical chops and business acumen. Just because someone can afford a high-end camera doesn't necessarily mean that they understand the why behind a business's profitability. Hiring for character and humility will always beat hiring for gear. To learn more about Matt's work, you can find him and his team at Integra Films. We'll be sure to include his contact information in the show notes. If you can relate to Matt's story of being out of sync with your editor, be sure to check out our free Fix Post framework. It's full of helpful resources to help you skip the chaos and get aligned with your video team from the very start of a project. If this episode has helped you navigate the messy world of creative hiring, consider sharing it with a fellow business owner who might be in the middle of their own redwood tree moment. Lastly, don't forget to hit subscribe. This has been Let's Fix Post.